Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, I'm not going to be doing anything other than answering your questions. So pull up a chair, put your feet up, and chillax, homie, because we're going to be chitty-chatting or something. All right, like I mentioned, we are just going to be answering your questions today, so there is no news we're discussing. Let's start with what I've been testing. First thing I should note, I am back on the Telefunken TF51 multi-pattern tube condenser microphone, going for a 251 style sound. Really a fun sounding microphone. I really enjoy this thing. But the more important aspect of what I'm testing is what I'm running that through. Another interface this week. This week, I am running it through the Elgato WaveXLR. Full disclosure, Elgato did send me both of the items I'm testing out today so I can make a review on them, which I will be doing in the next month or so, next week for one of these. But I'm running it through the WaveXLR. It functions as you would expect. It has a preamp, XLR input, 3.5mm output, and a USB-C. I know I already talked about this in the past, but the reason you're getting this is really the software, because it allows you to create an entire mix of different sound sources, whether it's Discord or your music app or a game. It allows you to bring all of those sound sources into a piece of software, mix them all in this Elgato software. It's called the Wavelink software, and then output a downmixed stream mix. So you can create an entire individual mix for your monitors as well as for your stream, and that's why you're buying it. It also does have clip guard, which is a digital limiter to keep you from distorting if you get too loud, which people do all the time while gaming. Not going to be trying that today because it's too early to be screaming, and I don't want to get the cops called on me because somebody thinks I'm dying or being murdered. Or I don't want somebody to say, hey, they're murdering him finally. Let me join in, and then come in and start murdering me because I'm not currently being murdered. Anyway, the other, sorry, that was weird. The other item I am testing is the Elgato low-profile boom arm. This is clearly going after the OC White low-profile boom arm market, and it makes sense because the OC White low-profile boom arm is prohibitively expensive. That's what I normally use, and I pulled up my invoice for it yesterday. Turns out with shipping, with the mounting for the boom arm, all of it, I paid over $500 for a single microphone stand. That's the most expensive audio accessory I have ever purchased. But this boom arm, the Elgato, is going for $100, and I will answer the question right up front. It does not compare to the OC White. It is in a different league from the OC White. The OC White is borderline perfect. I love the Gen 2 Ultima low-profile boom arm. This doesn't compete, doesn't compare at all. But for 1/4 or 1/5 the price, I think it does a sufficient job. It does seem to be more tension-based as opposed to spring-based. And on the OC White, you can adjust the tension to make it just float your microphone there. It's a beautiful system. This one, you just crank down the joints with an Allen wrench and it functions. But when you need to adjust it, it's a little bit less graceful, to put it that way. The cable channels do function. They are covered with a magnetic piece of metal. I have had the magnets just pop off or the channel covers pop off while I'm adjusting the microphone. Not really too keen on how they have the cable routing. If you were watching, you could just see the cable channel cover pop off right there as I tried to adjust the cable just a little bit. So it does have its faults, but it is $100 as opposed to $400 to $500, and that is the real selling point. That's what I've been testing, but it doesn't appear to have springs in it. So you don't really have the same issue as some kind of super cheap boom arm where you have these springs that'll vibrate if you bump your desk. And even the more expensive boom arms have springs in them, which will potentially lead to that sound being transferred to your microphone when you bump it. A good boom arm will eliminate that, will completely avoid that. But the Elgato low profile seems to avoid that as well because I don't think it has any springs. It's just, it seems, I have not torn it apart or anything, it seems to be more tension based as opposed to spring based. Okay, that's what I've been testing. We're not doing what you had to say. I apologize. I did not pull any questions or pull any comments, rather. I completely forgot to do that this morning, and I'm not going to stop recording and go do it now. It's way too late for that. We're knee deep in the S. Let's jump to my favorite part of the show then, the Ask Bandrew segment. Welcome back to the Ask Bandrew segment. If you have any questions, you can go to askbandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio, video, and text-based questions. I do prefer audio and video because then I don't have to read. You can send it. It's super easy to send in audio. You can send it in via your phone. I pay for this plugin called SpeakPipe. It allows you to send in audio from your effing phone. There's no reason you shouldn't be doing that, although I do prefer to hear you on your microphones. I'm rambling. Let's jump. AskBandrew.com, AskBandrew.com, AskBandrew.com. You will never forget that again. Now let's jump to the first voice submission from John.
Hey, Bandrew, it's John Hitbox here, and I've got a question for you. In regards to the Rode Procaster, I know you did a video unboxing of it and everything a couple of years ago. I was wondering if you'd be able to kind of go into some details on the audio ducking aspect of it. I've enabled it in my processing unit, and it doesn't seem to affect any of the channels. It doesn't seem to drop the audio in anything at all, even when I'm using the microphone in channel 1. So I'm hoping maybe you could figure it out. I've looked it up a million times. Nobody seems to have an answer. Maybe Rode released the firmware update without looking at that. Or maybe it's me. Anyway, thanks again, Bandrew. I love you.
John, thank you very much for the question. Very interesting question. And I remember watching Rode's videos, or I believe I remember watching Rode's videos, and they mentioned that the ducking only works for the microphone XLR inputs, so it will not be ducking any of the other software-based channels, the phone input, the sound pads, the USB, any of that. It will just be ducking the XLR inputs. Now, following that statement, I was looking up Rode's documentation. I was trying to find Rode's documentation to verify that. And while I was searching for it, I stumbled across a video discussing the ducking feature on the Rodecaster Pro, and I figured I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick watch, a quick listen, see what they have to say. First, what I was thinking was confirmed. The ducking feature is only going to duck channels 2, 3, and 4, the XLR inputs. And then I realized, this is a video from John, the gentleman who sent in this question. So John went ahead, and it's been so long, he has discovered the issue, made a video resolving that issue, and published it. And it was published back in February. I will link that in the description if you want to check that out, in the show notes, if you want to check out John's video about ducking on the Rodecaster Pro. And I apologize for not pulling out the RCP, setting it up, updating the firmware, and testing all of it out. I'm a bit lazy this morning. If you can't tell, I forgot to pull the comments, all of that. I'm a bit lazy. I don't feel up for that today, so I apologize for not having the actual test. Next, we have a voice submission from Anonymous. Take it away, Anonymous.
Hey, Bandrew. Now, you are probably already able to hear what I wanted to ask you about today. So, I purchased my M-Audio M-Track Solo back in the 5th of February. And I got it, I used it for about a week, but then the preamps lost loads of their gain, and there's this huge underlying hiss. So I sent it back to Amazon, sent me a new one, it was all good. Now, I've been using this new one for about a week, and I noticed on Wednesday, I'm recording this on Friday, but I noticed Wednesday that hiss was back. I still was able to keep my gain the same way, but the hiss is back. And then another thing that I noticed when I was in OBS, I was trying to troubleshoot it, and I noticed I usually run OBS with mono, so just next to where it says volume, there's this track that says mono, and I checked that, but then when I balance it all the way to the right, you can only hear the hiss, and then when I balance it all the way to the left, the hiss is completely gone, and it's completely fine. But then when I put it back in the middle, the hiss is back, and you can probably hear that right now in the recording, because on the right ear, when it's not set to mono, in the right ear you can hear my my voice, and then in the left ear you just hear this hiss, and I have no idea what it is, and I sent in a technical request to M Audio on their website about it, but I just also wanted to hear your feedback on what you think that the problem might be. So yeah. Bye.
That is an excellent, excellent question. You are running, if I remember correctly, the M Audio M-Track Solo. This is a very easy solution. I am going to assume that you have the volume on channel 2 on the M Audio turned up. Turn it all the way down. The reason that's important is if you have nothing connected to an input into a preamp, that preamp is performing as though you have a microphone connected with an impedance of infinity. Because there's no connection between pin 2 and 3, it's assuming or behaving as though you have a microphone with an impedance of infinity, which is the worst case scenario, meaning that will create the most noise for that preamp or that input. The higher the impedance of the device you're connecting to an input, the higher the noise floor. So the lower the impedance of microphone, the lower the noise of your preamp. So that's something to keep in mind when looking at specs. Lower impedance typically means better noise performance from your preamp. That's beside the point. Sorry for bumping the cable. If you have nothing connected and your volume is up on any input, it is going to be creating the worst noise possible, the worst noise performance possible. So the first thing you ought to be doing, if you are not using any channels on your device, turn the gain, the volume all the way down. On your M Audio M-Track Solo channel 2, turn it all the way down. Second thing, if I am not mistaken, in OBS, if you go into your advanced audio settings for every single input, it should allow you to select what channels for that input you want to have active. So you should be able to go into OBS, look up the audio settings for the M Audio M-Track Solo, and it should say input 1 and 2. Uncheck input 2. That should deactivate it. So when you go to downmix to mono in OBS, instead of downmixing channel 1, which is your microphone, and channel 2, which is your instrument input, down to a single mono track, it will just be downmixing channel 1, which is your microphone, and nothing to a mono track. So those are the two things that I would do. First, turn down channel 2 all the way because nothing is connected. You don't want that noise in your recording. Secondly, in OBS, go into your advanced audio settings and disable channel 2 because you're not using it, it sounds like. You don't need that engaged. And eliminate that noise. Okay, that's my recommendation. I hope that helps. And best of luck to you, Anonymous. Next, we have a question from Brad. Brad, take it away, good sir.
Hey, Bandrew, I had a question for you on microphone boom arms. I was going to pick up a boom arm for my wife, and I thought this would really be an opportunity for me to upgrade my own boom arm and pass along to her my cheapy $20 or so traditional scissor boom arm that has the springs on the outside. Anyway, I went to your channel, saw your review from a couple years ago of the Blue Compass, where you sang its praises, and thought, well, I'm going to splurge. I'm going to treat myself to something I probably don't need, but hey, why not? And then I noticed that in all of your videos, you're still using the traditional scissor boom arm with the springs on the outside. So I wanted to find out from you if there's something that makes those better, or something you didn't like about the Blue Compass, or was it literally just, the price, or, some other factor that made you stick with a regular old scissor boom arm? Thanks for, not just this, but, all of your videos. I really enjoy them.
All right, that is a very good question. Why do I use a cheapy boom arm with all the springs on it and all the whoosy whatsies and doobly diddlies and whatever you wants to call it? Because most people use cheapy boom arms. The entire purpose of why I select and use certain gear for my reviews is because I am trying to create a video that provides the largest group of people insight into the performance they'll be getting. That's why I use the Focusrite 18i20, because the Focusrite 2i2 is the most popular interface out there. I like having the 18i20 to get stuff off of my desk, have it over here. I have multiple inputs if I need them, but it's because that interface is going to provide the most people an accurate representation of the performance they'll get out of the microphone that I'm reviewing. Because if it's the best-selling interface, just inherently, it's going to provide the most people an understanding of how the mic will perform with their interface. Then, as far as the boom arm, I have the Yellowtech, I have an OC White, I have many more better boom arms that I would love to be using, but when most people have a cheapy boom arm with springs on it, and I am doing the bump rejection test where I'm tapping the boom arm, I don't want to use a boom arm that costs $400, $500 and does an incredible job dampening the springs and isolating the microphone mount from those springs. I don't want to use that because most people don't have that. I want to use a boom arm that most accurately represents what the majority of people have. And most people are jumping on Amazon and searching up broadcast boom arm. They're finding the $20 newer. I need to remember, I am determined to always pronounce it the way it is spelled. They buy the $20 newer and go about their lives. That's why I use cheaper boom arms as opposed to the Blue Compass, as you were asking about, or the Yellowtech, or the OC White, or the PSA-1. Because most people have a cheapy boom arm, and the goal of my videos is to provide the largest number of people with the most accurate testing and the most helpful testing that I possibly can. So I'm going to use the gear for my reviews that the most people have. I think I said the same thing about 50 times. Thank you very much for the question, Brad. Appreciate you. Next, we have a voice submission from Quan. Take it away, Quan.
Hello, Bandrew. Long-time listener, first-time voice submissioner, I guess. My name is Quan. I'm from California, and I'm also a former podcast hobbyist, but I still do some creative work on the side. Anyway, I'll get straight to a point, and that is, how do you feel about people referring to the Shure SM7b as a Twitch streamer microphone? But wait, before your blood gets all boiled up or whatever that saying is, let me give you some context. So a few of my coworkers, like many, are now working from home, and some of them have gotten into watching Twitch streams as of late. My coworkers are either using their AirPods or a basic Logitech headset or the microphone straight from their laptop. And they asked me, what microphone do I use? Because hopefully what you're hearing right now should sound a bit better than theirs, hopefully, but maybe not as good as you, but it does a pretty decent job in my opinion. Right now, I am using the Rode NT USB Mini unedited, mainly because I like the fact that it's USB Type-C, it's super compact, and most importantly, it looks really good on camera. I'm kidding. It actually sounds pretty good for a plug-and-play USB microphone. But before that, I did start out with the Audio-Technica 2100, which I bought based on your first review way back in 2016. And then I upgraded along the way, like adding the Behringer UMC22 audio interface, and then upgraded to the Audio-Technica 2035. I know it is a very controversial take, but I just like the sound of the condenser mic with my Asian accent because I think it sounds more natural, in my opinion. But in 2020, I did decide to sell everything because I honestly just wanted to minimize my setup and declutter my desk a bit. I'm not saying I want minimalism, but since I only needed a microphone for Zoom meetings and the occasional gaming session, I found that the Rode NT USB Mini best fitted my needs. Anyway, so that's the context. So when my coworker said, hey, what, those microphones that those game streamers use, and they asked me what my opinion on it and if maybe they should get one, at first I thought they meant like the Blue Yeti, and I told them those were some very treble focused microphone, and the sound isolation on them is actually quite poor for the price. Needless to say, they were a bit surprised that I said all of that, and we later realized they meant the Shure SM7b. So even though I never owned or used a Shure SM7b, I did, however, felt slightly insulted for all my favorite podcasters and content creators who are real pros when it comes to audio production, like yourself. And I did convince them that the Shure SM7b is really meant for professional work, and you will need all these other gear to make it sound good, like a cloud lifter or maybe a Go XLR, and some knowledge in EQing at the very least. Which begs the question, is calling the legendary Shure SM7b a streamer microphone an insult? And based on the rapid growth of game streaming and reaction channels out there, I wonder how many new content creators will think that they need to spend almost like $1,000 on gear to become a content creator now. Is the barrier to entry becoming too high because of these quote-unquote streamers are using them? Not that I have anything against them, because I really do enjoy some streamers from time to time, but I see sometimes that they are not using the Shure SM7b to its full potential or just have poor microphone etiquette. Anyway, sorry for the long-winded question, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this, and maybe try to get a funny reaction from you. Because I really do think the Shure SM7b deserve a bit more respect than calling it the go-to streamer microphone now. Hopefully you have a lovely day. I look forward to hearing your response on this, as well as the community's response. Even though I'm not in the market for microphones anymore, I just like to be updated on what's out there on the market, and I believe your channel is the number one channel for the best source of information and comparison out there on the internet. And I believe the community greatly appreciate you for all your knowledge and entertainment that you've given us all these years. Anyway, have a nice day. It was nice talking to you.
Quan, thank you very much for the question. That is great. Thank you very much for the voice submission. But most importantly, thank you so much for saying so many nice things about me. Your check is in the mail. I appreciate that very, very much. Nice doing business with you. As far as what you're using, the Rode NT USB Mini unprocessed sounds great. No issues with that one whatsoever. And as far as you selecting a condenser microphone over the Audio-Technica ATR 2100X, there's nothing controversial about that at all. That comes down to your personal preference, what you need, what you like. There's nothing controversial about that in the slightest. That's what audio is. It's all subjective. So if you are selecting a microphone that you believe fits you best, I don't think anybody could argue that that's controversial. I'm glad that you found a microphone that works for you. And on top of that, I envy you because you mentioned getting rid of everything that you don't need and minimizing your audio setup. Not going minimalist, but just sticking with the gear that you need, that you actually use. Here's a secret. I dream about that. I'm sure people look at this and say, oh, how wonderful. He has all these mics that he can pick from. He has all that gear. That it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. The gear owns me now. I am dreading the day of moving because of all of the gear that I have to make my videos. I have a dream of just having 5 to 10 microphones, a 7B, a U67, a U87, a KMS, lots of Neumanns in here. Then maybe the Telefunken stuff that I have, the ribbons that I have, the KU5A, the M160, the SEVs. Just getting rid of most of it, just having a handful of mics, a couple of interfaces, the X8, maybe the Twin X as well, and the preamps, but mainly my 500 series rack and just having that. Still a lot of stuff, but in comparison, it wouldn't be taking over my home. It wouldn't be filling my hallway, filling my bathroom. It wouldn't be filling my entire home. It's a nightmare. This is my hell, having so much stuff, so I envy you. I'm completely off topic here. You asked the question, thoughts on people referring to the SM7b as a Twitch streamer's microphone. Is it an insult? The first thing I want to say is I think you were spot on telling people that it's more of a professional microphone, and it's probably not going to be the best choice for people looking for a mic simply for conference calls, especially if they're not really interested in audio. I can just imagine somebody going and saying, I would like one SM7B, please, getting home and then realizing I have no idea how to connect this to my computer. And then going on Amazon and looking up an XLR to 3.5 millimeter cable, connecting it to their motherboard, and then I die inside. So I think you were spot on by saying it's not going to be for people in conference calls. It's not a beginner microphone. It is more of a professional mic. Second, you ask, is it an insult and am I offended by it? I will start by saying I wish I had a more interesting and entertaining response than this, but no. I don't think it's an insult. I am not offended by it. I could not care less. The reason I'm saying that is all of these classifiers, all of these labels that we give specific items are purely arbitrary. I could call the Telefunken TF51 a podcasting microphone now because I'm using it for a podcast. Would it be a bit silly? Sure, but it would be accurate because I'm a podcaster and I'm podcasting with it. We could call the AEA KU5A a ribbon microphone, a podcaster's microphone, now that I have used it for a podcast. The point being, these labels are purely arbitrary and have no bearing on the individual item. The label that we give a specific item does not change the characteristics of that item. The microphone will perform identically prior to it being called a streaming microphone and after it's called a streaming microphone. So the label doesn't bother me in the slightest. But exploring this a little bit more, is the SM7B amazing for other purposes besides streaming? 100%. But to those who only watch streaming or are only exposed to the SM7B through streaming, to them it is a streaming microphone, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with people's only experience with the SM7B being through watching people stream. And I don't think we should fault the individual for having lack of knowledge on a super niche topic such as the utilization, the proper utility of specific microphones. I don't think 99.99999% of the population could care less about the SM7 being used by Michael Jackson on Thriller. I don't think anybody really truly cares about that. Us nerds, absolutely. We think that's neat. But we cannot fault people for not saying, oh, the SM7B? Didn't the predecessor of that, the Shure SM7, which was released in 1973, isn't that what they used on Michael Jackson's Thriller? I don't think anybody cares. So we cannot fault them for that. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with people calling it a streaming microphone, especially if that's the only exposure they have to the microphone. But the most important reason why I am not offended by it, why it doesn't bother me, why I don't view it as an insult, is because it's deeply unimportant. There are so many more things that we can spend our time on that are better uses of our time and energy and emotions than getting angry about somebody calling a microphone a streaming microphone. People constantly say the SM7b sucks. I hate the SM7b. I don't care. Who cares? That's your opinion. Cool. I like the SM7b. If somebody were to come out and say, I think the SM7b is the best butt plug in the world, I would be in shock that somebody uses it for that, but I wouldn't be offended by it. If they use the SM7b for that function and it works well for them, more power to them. I just hope they clean it first before they speak into it. I hope they get it sanitized, run it through an autoclave or something, or steam it, or burn it. Set it on fire after you use it for that. I think my point was made, though. It's just unimportant and it doesn't matter. So I apologize that I did not have a more interesting or fun response to that, because I imagine you wanted to see me get super angry about it. It's unimportant. Sorry. And then the second question was, is the barrier of entry getting higher because streamers are using the SM7B, and now do people need to spend $1,000 on gear to get started? No. I don't think the barrier of entry is rising. The reason I'm saying that is, as the SM7B grows in popularity, we are not seeing more affordable options be discontinued. If anything, we're seeing an increase in options sub $150 or sub $200, all-in-one USB solutions that perform extremely well. You have killer $100 microphones. Sure, people don't think they look cool, so they're not going to buy them, but I think there are a bunch of incredible options out there, and we're seeing an increase in the release of those items because I think a lot of audio companies are finally coming around and saying, holy smokes, there is a lot of market there for streamers and podcasters and YouTubers and the online content creator that has been completely neglected by us because we just wanted to focus on music. So I don't think the barrier of entry is increasing at all. I think some people will look at the big streamers, see the SM7B a lot of the times and say, oh, I want that. I want that. They don't need it. If somebody is misguided and believe that they cannot start creating anything until they have $1,000 setup, somebody needs to smack them across the face and say, wake up, buddy. Wake up. What are you doing? You can create something with a $50 microphone and a $50 webcam, make something, find out if you like it, and then go forth and rule the world. But wake up, buddy. Stop wasting your money. You don't need to do that. You can go record with your phone for free, minus the sunk cost of your phone. I don't think the barrier of entry has been increasing. I would love to hear from everybody who is watching or listening. Go to the YouTube video and let me know in the comments. Do you think it is an insult or offensive to label the Shure SM7B a streamer microphone? And do you think the barrier of entry has been increasing because microphones like the SM7B have been growing in popularity? Let me know in the comments. I am very fascinated to hear what people think on this topic because I imagine there will be some spicy takes on that one. All right, next we have a voice submission from Taylor. Take it away, Taylor.
Hey, Bandrew, it's Taylor. I live next to a construction site, so I get really clean recordings, especially on my phone. Just kidding. What is a hum eliminator and a variable attenuator, the hardware that you would plug in line? I mean, I know what those words mean. Are they effective? Have a great day. One love.
Okay. Interesting question, and I don't know. Let me expand on that a little bit. What is a hum eliminator? I have no idea how it functions. I don't know what's inside of it. I don't know how it accomplishes what it accomplishes, but looking at the marketing materials, it eliminates 60 cycles hum, 60s cycle hum. I also saw one that mentions that it can fix cable buzz from unbalanced cables. I don't know if it's converting unbalanced to balanced, and I don't know if you would need to do that prior to a long cable run or not. I imagine you would want a long cable run to be balanced, but I have no idea how you would take a long cable run that is unbalanced and then remove the buzz that has been introduced to it. I don't know how it does it, but it removes that hum, 60 cycle hum, and unbalanced cable buzz, it sounds like, from some of these items. And then you ask about what is a variable attenuator. I'm pretty sure that's just a volume control. It allows you to adjust the volume. You have a potentiometer. I think that's what that dial would be called. And it allows you to adjust the volume inline. If it's an inline variable attenuator, it's a volume control. I don't know if that needs to be passive or active, but there you go. That's my understanding of it. If anybody understands hum eliminators or variable attenuators, let me know, expand upon it, and inform me in the comments. Tell me that I'm a dummy and that I don't know what I'm talking about, and you would be correct. But inform me, because I am a dummy, and the one less dummy being in the world is a positive. So be a positive impact on the world and tell me how not to be stupid. Thank you. And I think that's it for this week. I have nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else. We are diddly done. We're still talking like Ned Flanders. I just have to say, I really enjoyed making last week's episode, and I really enjoyed this week's episode. There is something incredibly appealing about doing less preparation, sitting down and just shooting the breeze. And I now understand. I remember why people love doing those chatting with their friends podcasts that are unlistenable many times, because just hanging out and talking is a ton of fun. It's a lot of fun, and I have really enjoyed making these last couple weeks of episodes. And I appreciate you for still watching and listening, even though I am just shooting the breeze. I'm hoping that even though I am shooting the breeze, I am still doing a bit of preparation, pulling questions, making sure I have an appropriate answer. I hope there's still some value for you if you do still listen to these and you don't like just shooting the S. And I appreciate you. I think that's all I've got. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, an amazing rest of your Sunday, a great Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talk at you. If you do want to know everything else that I do, go to bandrewscott.com. I published a guitar cover, and there will be another one this coming week. And a watch review went out last week. That happened. A watch review will come out in 2 more weeks. A interface review will come out this Tuesday. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, I'll talk to you later. I love you so much. You're the best. Bye-bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.